I'm sorry, but recycling doesn't work. When you recycle, the assumption is that any plastic you throw away is cleaned, repurposed, then reused. But the reality is a little more complicated than that. Each piece of plastic has their specific resin number, which determines whether or not it's recyclable. Only resin numbers 1 and 2 are actually recyclable, while the other 5 aren't. These are known as single-use plastics. The symbols themselves look very similar to each other, but they are also suspiciously similar to the recycling symbol, which, to be clear, do not mean the same thing. But believe it or not, this similarity was done intentionally. Not to be helpful, but to be misleading. When plastics became a big thing after World War II, Americans became concerned over the environment and tried to hold companies accountable. This led to the mindset that plastics could be recycled. However, when the Society of the Plastics Industry looked into plastic recycling in the 1980s, they found that plastics can't really be recycled. Additionally, it was almost impossible to make the recycling process a profitable system. It was always cheaper and faster to make new plastics through the burning of fossil fuels. So in an attempt to relieve the people's concerns, the Society of Plastics Industry began to quietly lobby states to label every plastic product with these resin identification numbers. The reason they designed them to look so similar to the recycling symbol was to make people feel like recycling plastics was as simple as making a basket across the room. In fact, the president of the SPI had said,
"If the public thinks the recycling is working, then they're not going to be as concerned about the environment."
So, because of this reassurance over the years that recycling would solve all of our problems, we are faced with microplastics everywhere, polluting the environment and our food.
Microplastics, the gnarliest stuff in the ocean.
It's stated that the average human will consume 20 kilograms of plastic in their lifetime, which is the equivalence of 2 recycling bins. But this doesn't mean that we should stop recycling. Even though 90% of plastic still ends up in landfills, burned, or in the ocean, 10% of it is actually still recycled, and that's important progress that we should highlight. So, what should we do? Well, we should stay educated about how to effectively recycle, and more importantly, push for legislation that reduces the use of single-use plastics. By doing this, we can all live longer and healthier lives in a cleaner environment without eating recycling bins.